Hello, good to have you with us. President Trump says that his first day of his visit to Saudi Arabia was tremendous after billions of dollars of trade deals were signed. The most significant was for arms to boost the Saudi military, which the White House has called the largest single arms deal in US history. Simon Clemson reports.
In business, sometimes you have to do the dance. And having won billions of dollars worth of contracts for US firms, Donald Trump is more comfortable celebrating with the Saudis than he might look.
That's beautiful.
It's certainly more comfortable for him here than it is back home, given the furore over his sacking of the FBI director, investigating allegations his presidential campaign was tied to Russia. But day two of this tour could be the beginning of a far greater challenge, as he leaves the world of striking commercial deals he knows so well to try to strike political deals instead. One of his goals is to eventually do what no other experienced leader has managed and bring peace to the Middle East. And this the president who tried to ban visitors from 6 mainly Muslim nations. But the amount of red carpet they've rolled out for him here tells a different story. His tough stance on Iran has won him many friends in Saudi Arabia.
Always the right hand, right? Always the right hand.
If only teacup diplomacy were enough in a region where some disputes stretch back thousands of years. Supporters believe Donald Trump's got his own long history as a master negotiator. Today, when President Trump speaks to more than 40 Muslim nations, he'll talk of the need to address religious extremism and intolerant ideology, a message some here may find hard to accept, coming from someone who is such a controversial figure in his own right. Simon Clemson, BBC News.
Well, as you saw there, the Saudi king pulled out all the stock to make his guest feel welcome. The huge arms deal signed comes as Saudi Arabia is fighting Houthi rebels in neighbouring Yemen. The United Nations says about 10,000 people have been killed since the fighting began in 2015, and Yemen is on the verge of famine. 2 weeks ago, a UN rapporteur accused Saudi Arabia of failing to investigate accusations that its forces carried out war crimes. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, is in Riyadh. She's been speaking to the political analyst Salman Al-Ansari.
You're following this trip with great interest. A lot of talk about shared interest, economic cooperation. Is that what young Saudis want to see?
Definitely. Actually, we're here in Saudi Arabia, despite actually the sandstorm that we are witnessing right now, there is a huge positive kind of vibe here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The people and the government, you can tell that everybody is actually content with the fact that the US administration chose Saudi Arabia to be the first foreign visit for them. That in itself has an unprecedented strategic importance, not only to the region, but to the overall global security, because we really need the United States to be back to the game. We need the United States to be basically helping its partners to combat terrorism and to confront the challenges we are facing. We are facing a lot of challenges. The Iranian-backed militias are all over the place. They are actually targeting not only the Middle Eastern nations, but also American interest, pure American interest. So it's very important for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the GCC countries and the Arab and Muslim world to open a complete new page with the new US administration, so they can move forward and confront the challenges.
There was very much shared language between Rex Tillerson and Adel Al-Jubeir, talking about calling on Iran to end what they described as a network of terrorists, telling the newly re-elected President Hassan Rouhani that he had to do this if he wanted to change his relationship with the world. But there are some observers who believe that Saudi Arabia exaggerates the involvement of Iran across the region.
Actually, the idea that we are actually exaggerating the fact about Iran is actually, I don't see it to be accurate at all. Why? Because it's not only us saying that, it's actually the whole world is saying it. Like, just the Treasury Department just sanctioned Hezbollah in Syria. We are speaking of an Iranian regime that has more than 75 Iranian-backed militias just in Iraq. They are destabilizing Iraq. They are getting involved in Syria. They are killing more than 600,000 people in Syria and displacing 12 million people in Syria. So we are not exaggerating here. We are seeing some Houthi-backed militias, like Iranian-backed militias, who are the Houthis and Saleh, are actually operating in Yemen and killing civilians in a daily basis. We are not exaggerating. We are not exaggerating at all. We are putting our hands on the facts and nothing but the facts. And we need the whole world, the United States and the global community to basically confront Iran, because Iran is the root problem in the region, not only in the region, but in the whole world.
Salman Al-Ansari, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. And of course, this is a region where weather is always a metaphor for what's happening politically. This is what's happening on the evening of President Trump's visit. He's now dining a luxurious reception with both Saudi and Western food for President Trump, the First Lady Melania Trump, Ivanka, who's attracting a lot of interest on social media, and of course the entire Trump team.
Lise Doucette from Riyadh there, speaking to the political analyst Salman Al-Ansari. This is BBC World News, the latest headlines. President Trump has received an extravagant welcome during the first day of his visit to Saudi Arabia. He's expected to make a speech about Islam on Sunday. Well, let's get more on that story. And Jeffrey Mock is Amnesty International's Middle East specialist. He spoke to me a little earlier from Duke University in North Carolina, and I asked him whether Amnesty had heard what they wanted from President Trump.
No, we haven't. We've heard arms sale that we consider irresponsible and dangerous. The Saudi government has a pattern of war crimes, many of them using weapons bought from the U.S. and the United Kingdom. That makes the U.S. complicit in these war crimes. This pattern will only continue, we're very concerned, if this sale goes through. At the same time, these crimes are leading to thousands of Yemenis leaving their homes, thousands of civilians' deaths. At the same time that President Trump is trying to restrict the Yemenis from coming to the United States. So he's causing problems at both ends. He's complicit in the war crimes that are causing people to flee from home, and he's complicit in preventing them from leaving the country. I
mean, the term war crimes is pretty serious, and I'm sure it's a term that the Saudis would dispute, and also their allies as well. I mean, the UK and also previous administrations in the United States have raised this in private, they've said. President Obama was fairly public in his criticism of the Saudi Arabians' human rights record. It didn't do much good, did it?
It did not, but we also saw an uneven message, and a message that wasn't actually reflected in policy. Year in, year out, the U.S. State Department did a human rights report that echoed a lot of the messages and concerns that Amnesty International did, but it never got reflected in policy. And in terms of public statements, the last time President Obama went to the Saudi Arabian he never raised human rights issues. It was something that they tried and would step back whenever they saw an obstacle. It needs a long-standing work in cooperation with the Saudis. We're not asking the U.S. to stop talking to the Saudis. We're asking them to continue and keeping human rights on the agenda on a long-term basis.
Amnesty International's Jeffrey Mock there.